Hey, it's King in Tampa here at the J.C. Newman Cigar Factory. I'm about to go on a tour of the factory, so I'm really looking forward to that. Should be cool. I'll take you guys along on my adventure. Hopefully, I'll be able to show you some interesting facts. But here's a little bit about them. Let's see, how long has it been here? Definitely been around for at least 100 years. It opened in 1910 and at its peak had 150 cigar factories where 500 million cigars were rolled by hand each year. And of course, Tampa was known as the cigar capital of the world, which is why currently Tampa is still known as Cigar City. Fun. So here is the entrance. Let's see what's going on. Amazing. It's a beautiful building. So the tour starts in just a little bit here, but I'm gonna explore the museum a little while we're here. What's this? A Chevette knife. Tools of the trade. And it's used to trim. Ah, okay, down here. I thought the Chevette knife was this giant stone over here, but it is just the blade that you see down there. But this is the Chevette whetstone that they use to sharpen the blades, I guess. Interesting. So I guess this would be shared by like a group of cigar bakers to constantly sharpen their knives, and probably all of those are strokes that they use. So that's pretty cool. And here are all the different regions they're in. So that's kind of fun. All the fun little artifacts. I do really love the artwork on all the cigar boxes I've seen over the years. They're always just amazing. I mean, whether or not you smoke cigars or care about cigars, I myself, I just dabble every so often. I might have like maybe 1 or 2 cigars a year, so I'm by no stretch of the imagination any kind of expert. But I've always loved cigar boxes. They're really, really cool. My official factory tour sticker.
J.C. Newman. My name is Holden. If you need anything in the next hour and 15 minutes, let me know. We are also a fully ADA compliant facility, so if anybody needs the elevator because we're a giant 3-story brick cigar factory, let me know, right? Bad knee, bad hip, bad ankle. It's also a pretty cool elevator in the 20s. But other than that, we'll be both there. And if you have any questions, please interrupt me. Ask, take pictures whatever you like, look whatever you like, talk to employees if you like, just don't take whatever you like, just start with inventory. And I'm going to sell to you after the tour, and I'm going to start for you. We'll go around the building today. We'll see our cigars being made. This is the last operating cigar factory in Tampa, and also the last premium cigar factory in the United States. We make about 15 million cigars a year, and those are different brands like Factory Throwouts and Trader Jack's, which are more inexpensive, and the American Angel Quest and Newman, which are more expensive. Handmade and machine-made though. The machines are from 1931, so they're not like newfangled. You're gonna see some cool history in this building today. And that's what it's all about, right? It matters for Tampa, because once upon a time, Tampa used to make about 500 million cigars a year. Right? Nowadays, 15 million isn't as big as 500 million, but still everyone that got a home. So we're aging gracefully. Where did all those other companies go? Like Garcia and Vega, Arturo Fuente, they moved down south. A lot of them moved to Dominican Republic, Honduras, Nicaragua. There really isn't an American cigar anymore because the labor's so expensive and tobacco's so expensive. So we're here, we're the only game in town, and J.C. Newman doesn't show any sign to stop. To boot, I mean, we're a family-owned company too. The Newmans are in the building pretty much every day. Eric and Bob are here, they're brothers, they're in their 70s and they run the company. And Eric's son Drew officially joined the company in 2017. So we got plenty of Newmans lined up. We're gonna stay here in the States for as long as possible. Ironically though, we're not originally part of Tampa. Everybody else in Tampa is Cuban, Spanish, or Italian. We're actually of Jewish extract. We're from Cleveland, Ohio. We came down here, like a lot of people do. You know, you move from Ohio to Florida. That's just what happens, right? There's a big pipeline. We came from Cleveland. Our company started back in 1895 in Cleveland, Ohio. One of our factories, we we actually got torn down and built an Indian ballpark on top of it. And now, since 1953, we've been in this building. We didn't change much about the building though, that's why we keep the nickname El Reloj. That's the Spanish name, means the clock in Spanish. That's what Cubans called this place back in the day, when it was all Cuban cigar makers here. And it still has a working, functional clock mechanism there, and the 6-story clock tower. That thing rings in the hour. So, you know, if you were a Cuban cigar maker back in 1910, when this factory first opened in 1910, you would have been woken up by this thing at 6 a.m. Just like how it is in Nicaragua today. Everybody wakes up because there's like an air raid warning that goes off at 5 a.m. tells you when you need to roll out of bed and start rolling cigars. So, yeah, we try to keep things pretty much the same in this building. I'm sure you'll appreciate presence. But if you would, I got to talk about Cleveland really quick. So head through the doorway here, and I'll tell you about our company founder, Julius Caeser Newman. Kind of cool name, right? Yeah, so make sure you can see this black and white photograph here. That bald guy in a 3-piece suit is our company founder, J.C. Newman. Incredible life, by the way. Guys like Andrew Carnegie, except for the back was like steel, right? Guy came to this country as a 13, 14-year-old immigrant, teenager, didn't speak English, did not roll cigars, had no skills really, just a lot of help from his family. And at the encouragement of his mother, decided to pick up cigar making as a trade, as a hobby, as a passion, as a purpose in life. And a German cigar maker was paid $3 a month to teach him how to roll. Within a few years, J.C. Newman was a master cigar maker, and eventually he started his own company in 1895, and the following year he became an American citizen. The immigration officer, probably some bad guy with a sense of humor as bad as mine, decided to call him Julius Caesar, and the name stuck, and that's why he called it the J.C. Newman Cigar Company, and that's why we make a cigar called the Julius Caesar cigar. They did have one thing right though, he was imperial. The guy literally built the tobacco empire. Very quickly, he was one of the biggest cigar manufacturers in the Midwest. He's making like 40 million cigars a year. These brands, we don't exactly make a lot of them anymore, but Student Prince, Dr. Nickel, Judge Wright, these were all this huge brand. We do still make El Baton, Alcazar, and Brickhouse. Those are very popular cigars from our company. And he made the decision back in the 50s to move from Cleveland to Tampa. Reason being, there was a big East Coast firm called Newman Cigar Company, and they were monopolizing all the tobacco they traditionally used from Connecticut and Pennsylvania. They're buying up all the good wrappers. So he's like, all right, what are my choices? Cuban wrapper. You had to buy Cuban wrapper. You couldn't buy American. So he began using a lot of Cuban, and he eventually realized, okay, if I'm using so much Cuban, may as well get closer to Cuba. So he sold his factories and his buildings in Cleveland, and he bought this building with cash in Tampa, and they've been here for 7 decades now. The cool thing too, he brought all the machines and equipment with him, so this building's like walking back in time. You can see these same machines upstairs, which we will today, operating and making our machine-made cigars like a factory throwout or a Trader Jack. Those are the brand names. It's just our employees don't look like, you know, I Love Lucy characters anymore, right? We don't force our employees to wear the uniform. Also, if you see Eric and Bobby today, most of the time they're wearing like button-down shirts. Nobody has to wear a 3-piece suit in the cigar industry anymore. Nobody's that stiff, buttoned-up, formal anymore, which is honestly for the better. Of course, we also don't use Cuban tobacco anymore. Since 1962, the United States has an embargo on Cuba, and we don't buy and use Cuban tobacco. But it's still grown by the same family, the Olivas. They just grow it in Ecuador, and sometimes we get it from Nicaragua too. So that's what's kept us here, kept us in America. A lot of challenges. You know, obviously Cuban embargo was no fun. Neither was all the different smoking bans that came about. And in the 70s and 80s, it was pretty rough to be a cigar maker in this country because General Cigar Company was kind of switching over to completely mechanized cigars, and they lost a lot of quality. All the brands like White Owl, Dutch Masters, Roy Tan, Tipperillo, all the brands your grandfather smoked were really low quality at that point. You know, they were using these wrappers called homogenized tobacco leaf wrappers. It's like tobacco and cornstarch, almost like it's a paper substance. And cigar smoking was seen as like a dirty old man's hobby. And it's like this guy sits in a dark room by himself and smokes these really low quality El Productos to get away from his family, right? So thankfully, 2 things changed. First off, Stanford consolidated the ownership of the company, and second off, people started wanting Dominican and Nicaraguan handmade cigars. So with the consolidation, Stanford had a bunch of brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews in the industry, and a lot of them didn't really care about the cigar industry's future. They just kind of liked the money coming in. You know, they were takers, not makers, you know what I mean? So eventually Stanford had to buy them out in 1986, and then of course the Dominican and Nicaraguan handmaids, this magazine came out called Cigar Aficionado in 1992. And Cigar Aficionado, if you've ever seen it, they always have cool cover models like, you know, I don't know, Michael Jordan, Terry Bradshaw, Carl Weathers, Arnold Schwarzenegger, cool pop cultural figures for American men. And it made people want to start smoking cigars again. It made it a much younger hobby, and the cigars shot up in quality, and the demand shot up too. They all wanted these special handmade cigars made in the Dominican and Nicaragua. We didn't have a factory in Dominican or Nicaragua, but thankfully we had a connection and a relationship with the Puente. So when Carlos Puente Sr. came into our offices in 1986 and asked us to make a cigar for him, we're like, yeah, sure, of course we'll make cigars for you, Puente, but in exchange, can you make cigars for us? And since then, we have been getting Dominican handmade cigars, which was able to pay off our debts against the building, was able to keep us here in America. And I mean, honestly, part of the reason why the lights are on in Tampa still and why we have tours here is because of the Puente family. So we owe a lot to them. We also owe a lot to our factory in Nicaragua, which we built in 2011. That factory down there is our sister plant. We make about $15 million a year in Tampa and probably $15 to $20 million a year in Esteli, Nicaragua. We're still a huge company. We're still big players in the industry. And all said and done, we bring in like 35 million cigars a year. You know, we're very proud of our history here, and we'll see more of it as we go through the building, down to the basement and such. But yeah, I mean, Nicaragua, Dominican, Tampa, Florida, oh my, we've got a lot going on here. It's just, we're gonna focus on Tampa today, folks. We're gonna focus just on the history in this building, this historic 1910 cigar factory. And so if you would, we're gonna go downstairs to the basement. Anybody in the ability to try? You can see, I mean, the old wood mold and stuff. Quest Array, a lot of Quest Array stuff happening. Also, it's the Island of Misfit toys for all the brands that got discontinued over the years. We used to make a brand called Dr. Nickel, and it had like a fictional doctor who would sell you the cigar, and he would advocate you smoke like 4 cigars a day. That was his prescription, right? You can't get away with that anymore. We also made a brand called Student Prince, where it's got this very youthful blonde guy on the cigar label. The guy looks like he's 12 years old. Calling a cigar student anything's not a good idea, right? And then of course, Sano cigars we used to make, hoping they would change the world. They didn't really. J.C. Newman, our old company founder, and his son Stanford Newman, they worked on this brand. They were nicotine-free cigars, right? So if you're a cigarette smoker, this is the best thing in the world. They're not nicotine addictive, right? And they're not cigarettes, so you don't inhale them like a cigarette, you just puff on them. We were hoping these would be like the Diet Coke of the cigar world, but unfortunately they're more like, you know, New Coke. Nobody bought them, and they're still here to this day, 80 years later. So it's cool. It's like the overflow of the museum down here. Lots of vignettes, lots of stories. My favorite story is that back at the end of our archives hallway, Eric and Bobby Newman, the current owners of the company, actually rediscovered a trap door that was installed in the building in the 1920s. Right, so we've got a working, functional trap door. It's not a gimmick for the tour. It's actually part of the building, and it's back at the end of the archives hallway right here, which I'll open up and show you. We got a couple of our security guards watching it. I'm just kidding, I need a second. But back here's our trap door. And the reason why it's here is because Tampa used to have a mafia here in Ybor City.
Used to.
Well, they don't rob us
Don't tell
anymore,
them.
I'll say that much. They used to steal a lot of money from the cigar factories. They'd rob the payroll trucks, or they'd swindle your cigar makers out of their money using this like rigged numbers game called Bolito. So if you ever had money or employee records away from prying eyes and hands, you'd use this trap door right here. You can safely bivouac it downstairs here and nobody even knows it's gone. It's just nowadays, like I said, yeah, we're on direct deposit. So we're not worried about people coming in and stealing money, but it is cool to see a trap door, a working functional trap door, like some sort of speakeasy here in our cigar factory. And of course, one of the better James Bonds, Pierce Brosnan, Jim Belushi over here. It's cool. Like I said, we're pack rats, but all the better, right? We have pretty much every cigar aficionado down here, most cigar journals and stuff, especially the ones that, you know, rate our cigars very highly. And in fact, speaking of cigars, we have an entire vault with about 150,000 cigars. They're either rare, antique, vintage, or discontinued J.C. Newman products, although some of them even predate our company. We've got some Cuban cigars down here from the 1850s, making them the oldest cigars in the world in our collection. Come on, I'll show you. Down here around the corner to the left. Bale is the only legal bale Cuban tobacco left in America. It's from 1958. Yeah, so it's, at this point it's 66 years old and we'll probably never use it for cigars. But it is cool because, you know, our claim to fame, one of our claims to fame as a company, we were the first company to use Cameroon wrapper. After the embargo started, people wanted a high quality wrapper for their cigars. We began buying this African Cameroon tobacco from the French. And we were so used to it by 1964, you know, when everybody was freaking out about Cuban tobacco, we were ready to go. You know, we'd had an alternative for years by that point. But our competitors would always boast they still had Cuban tobacco. I guess almost like a gag, Stanford said 2 can play at that game, and he held an entire bale, so it's still here now, 66 years later. And that's the only legal bale of Cuban tobacco. Come on, check it out. And then these are cigars we have from the 1850s too. These are the oldest cigars in the world. They actually came out of a shipwreck. That's why they look, you know, a little jostled. They're 167 years old, right? So this guy bought them in 1857. He was hoping he'd be able to smoke them. He never got the chance, poor guy. And they're down in our basement now as a result. Lots of other cool stuff down here. Everything on the left side, when you walk in, those are all pre-embargo Cuban cigars, either from when we were making cigars all the way back in Cleveland or projects here. But the only cigars that leave this part of the factory are in the aging room, which is behind those kind of orange doors that'll open up for us. It's kind of like a rack room in a bourbon distillery or a wine cellar. We age cigars, the ones that are handmade, at least in Tampa, the handmade ones we age for about a year under controlled climate conditions here in this cedar-lined room. And after about a year, they'll be boxed and sold as one of the brands we sell handmade in Tampa, like the Americans, or the Angel Quest, or the Leroy Newman. Newman, not Newman. Come on in here, check it out. Yeah, we got hygrometers in here. We do try to keep it climate controlled. You'll notice if you're like a geek and you read every single hygrometer, patches of this room are a little bit more dry, patches of this room are a little bit more wet. It's like an oven, you know, an old oven where there's disparity. So we do rotate the cigars around the room. We do rotate them. But after about a year or more, I mean, these ones are from 1223, so they're, you know, they got a little bit ways to go. These are from May 22, so they're ready to go. Once they're about a year old, we'll box and package them. If it's wrapped in black cloth, that's our all-American cigar, the American. All the tobacco is sourced in the U.S., even the packaging is all American made. And it was kind of cool brand because we first started making it in this building in 1910. It was the oldest, I mean, I guess it is the oldest cigar in this building. Oldest history, I should say. And we still make it now. The red ones are named after an early Tampa cigar manufacturer named Angel Quest, so there's the story there. And finally, the gold ones are named after Leroy Newman, the American artist, the guy who did all the watercolor. If you go visit anybody's house and they've got a giant watercolor print of, like, I don't know, Muhammad Ali, probably a Leroy Newman, very big artist from the 80s. We named the cigar after him because he's a big cigar aficionado. And whenever we sell the cigars, we donate part of the profits to local Tampa high schools here for the arts programs, you know. So, our next department is where you prep the wrapper tobacco. We call it the casing department in English because I mean, I guess it should really be reverse casing. When the farmers pack the tobacco, they pack it dry. They literally will press it down in this giant vise, and they'll case it. You'll have a giant bale, like 80 pounds of dry leaf tobacco. Right? We buy it that way because it's safer and cheaper to ship. And then when we're ready to use it, we rehydrate it. You rehydrate the tobacco, right? So in English, we call this the casing department. In Spanish, it's more literal. They call it mojando because that means wetting, because you're wetting the tobacco. Once it's super soft and supple from the moisture, you can roll cigars out of it. The wrapper really has to be stretchy because that's what you put on the outside of the cigar. It has to be smooth, it has to be oily, it has to look pretty. Usually, you know, it's not like wrappers better than other tobacco leaves. The reason why we pick wrapper isn't because it tastes better necessarily, it's because it looks better. It's a bigger leaf, it's more consistent in coloration, the veins are smaller, that's what makes it wrapper tobacco. If it's not as pretty, it's going to be binder or filler, which is the inside of the cigar. So we'll see that next. Here, let me lock up this part right here. This is Connecticut American tobacco, this is Connecticut broadleaf. But you probably won't enjoy the smell because this is what's going to become a Maduro wrapper. See how dark and luscious that color is? Maduro tobacco is kind of like when you're making banana bread and you hold on to the bananas so they turn all brown and mushy and have that rotten sweet smell. The same thing happens with tobacco. You soak it in water and let it ripen. That's what Maduro means. It means ripen in Spanish. You let it ripen and ripen and ripen until it turns black. As a result, the tobacco is much sweeter and earthier. It's just that when you are fermenting it, you're getting rid of all the organic compounds and impurities. It's breaking down, and it smells pretty strong. It smells like a mixture of a horse barn and corn silage. So, I mean, if you want to smell that, you can go for it, but I'm going to show you much more pleasant tobacco. The Ecuadorian stuff smells more like floral, you know, more like how you expect tobacco to smell. Here, I'll show you down here. This is that Ecuadorian tobacco. Yeah, much more pleasant. Here, pass that around, smell it. You can feel how soft it becomes when it's wet. It's supple, it's elastic, it's kind of like glove leather. Here, let me get one more. Okay. I'll show you another type upstairs when we get upstairs. It's Asian tobacco, actually. It's Indonesian. Let me just close these doors. Give me 5 seconds. So they don't get mad at me. I've seen it green. Yeah, right? That's what makes cigar tobacco so distinct. You have to hang it up in a barn and let the elements, you let it air cure for, it could take up to 6 months actually. That's what turns it brown. And you keep that really pleasant smell, that kind of floral smell that comes off the tobacco. You don't get that same smell out of cigarette tobacco because they smoke it or toast it, you know. So it's gonna have a different smell with the cigarette tobacco. But we'll see upstairs. We're gonna take this tobacco and we're actually gonna strip it. If you look at each leaf, the top side's very pretty to look at. It's usually very smooth, like the color of milk chocolate. The bottom side's a little bit more pale and the veins stick out more. So you don't want your customer to see the bottom side of the leaf. You roll some cigars left to right, some cigars right to left, like the Twix factory, something as ridiculous as that sounds. So your customer can always see this top part of the leaf. And actually upstairs we'll see, we take the vein and we cut it out, almost like collard greens or, I don't know, Swiss chard or kale or whatever. You cut the stem out so you can have the left side and the right side. So we have specialized machines that do that, and that's all part of the production of the second floor, including those machines we use that are from 1910 that strip the tobacco. It's really cool. If you would, come this way. This last room I'm going to show you in the basement is called a hot room or a mulling room. We don't use it every day because sometimes the Cubans want to do it entirely by hand, like you saw. They want to manually process tobacco and examine it because it's more technical. Make sure you can have a hands-on approach, right? But occasionally we do use this room. It's like a giant medieval torture wheel where the tobacco spins around and gets blasted with heat and humidity, and it's just a much faster process. It takes like 2 hours instead of 2 days for comparison, you know? So we'll see this really quickly, then we'll go upstairs. If you get frizzy here, I'm sorry. I don't have that problem. Wow, you can smell it back to the door, right? It smells kind of like a hip rope or like leather, maybe. And yeah,
It's a little humid in here. Oh, nice.
Hey, John, Carlo, or security, Rick, not here yet. So could I have something up in the elevator? Yeah, so this is exactly what I was telling you it is. It's a giant hot room or mulling room. You basically steam the tobacco for 2 hours. That's all tobacco we use. By the way, is anybody not a cigar smoker that doesn't know anything about cigars? Okay, so it's like beer. You know, with beer you have IPAs and pilsners, you have lagers and amber ales, and you got stouts and porters. Same thing. This type of wrapper is what we call natural. It'd be the equivalent of like a lager or an amber ale, right in the middle of the road. You know, so it's not super strong, not super mild, medium body. We use the most out of any of the types of this natural. This is Indonesian, by the way. You can always tell the Indonesian tobacco apart because it smells a little like a hemp rope. It's very, very strong. So that's the Asian tobacco. I'll show you more of it upstairs. Houston, Texas?
Georgetown, Texas.
Georgetown?
North of Austin.
North of Austin?
Yeah.
Very cool. And you guys, where you guys from? Doing Iowa. Iowa? I've heard of that place. You, sir?
Canada, Toronto.
Toronto, Canada. Yeah, I was going to say, upstairs you'll see our cigar machines. There's only 30 left of those machines in the entire world, and we have 24 of them here, and there's 6 in Toronto, Canada. This place called House of Horvath. Have you ever seen House of Horvath cigars?
That does sound strangely familiar.
Yeah.
I'll have to investigate.
And you folks right there in the middle, where are you from?
Tampa.
Oh, okay, right here. Hey, that's cool too.
Yeah.
You're a local flavor. Yeah, we had about 17,000 visitors to the building last year, so you know, we'll take all comers, near and far, wherever you are. All right, check. There's nothing there. Oh.
Maybe the building's haunted. The ghosts are.
What?
Is the building haunted? Oh no, it's just.
You know, some people think the building's haunted. I've never seen anything personally, but there are a lot of stories.
I mean, any old building, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm so glad we have like 6 security guards now, so they can all help with the elevator, right? Yeah. The snark will be turned up.
Do they do ghost tours of the building, or?
We do. Around Halloween time, they do ghost tours.
Nice.
Usually 2 ghost tours in October. Thank you, Gene. This is where we make the most cigars in the building. Probably about 60,000 a day. Actually using the same machines that we used up in Cleveland, by the way. That guy right there in the middle of the picture wearing the suit jacket with the cigar box, the mustache, and the bowler hat, that's J.C. Newman. Yeah, he's about 31 years old in that picture. 20 years after that picture was taken, or 25 actually, he would have bought these machines that we're still using currently to this day. So head on in, we'll see some of the machines now. And we'll start off with a very pleasant, very nice, very calm.
Morning.
So these ladies are in charge of quality control. They double check each cigar for visual, physical excellence. If it passes their standards, it goes and gets put into a, bag, box, bundle, and we ship it out across the United States. These are mostly machine-made cigars, right? Those brands I was telling you about, we literally call them factory throw-outs. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just, inexpensive, value-priced cigars. Same with the Trader Jack. Come here, check this out. Rhonda is she's basically the Trader Jack's lady. She's been making flavored cigars for like 20 years. That's what the Trader Jack is. It is a flavored, or technically an aromatic cigar. When she puts the cigars in the bag, watch, she puts a couple of squirts of that liquid. That brown liquid is vanilla extract and rum. So, you can't say it's rum, but if you look at the packaging, it says cane alcohol. So what is cane alcohol, guys? What is it? What kind of alcohol do you make out of cane sugar, right? Anyway, so it's rum and vanilla extract that she puts in there. The cigars suck it up and they become like a rum flavored cigar, hence the pirate theme, right? Trader Jack. They do have to set for about 30 days, because once they absorb the liquid, they're super wet, so they do have to dry out. But Ron here personally inspects each cigar that goes in. And if there's any ugly ones, like these ones have what we call frog eye. It's a type of bacteria that attacks the tobacco. And it looks like, sorry Ron, I messed up the pile. Typical Holden. That little yellow spot, there's nothing wrong with it. It would still smoke good, but it doesn't look pretty, right? So even though this cigar retails for like $1 or $2 a cigar, we still want to be as perfect can be. Stanford used to always say, our old company president, he would always say, these are value cigars, but they ain't cheap. Some of these factory throw-outs are like 8.5 inches long. They're so big, they don't fit in any of our old cellophane machines from the 40s and 30s. Why? People didn't smoke big cigars back in the 40s and 30s. Most popular cigars were like a Robusto, Corona, Lonsdale shape. They were a lot smaller and skinnier than the ones we smoke now. So God bless her, Gladys here has to put each double Corona cigar into a cellophane tube herself.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing this morning? All right.
One thing I will say, a lot of the packing ladies here, hi Gladys.
This feels good, okay?
What? I never treat anybody, bro. What are you talking about?
I'm joking.
Gladys has been here for like 26 years, and I always say, Gladys, what keeps you here so long? She always says, health insurance. But no, in all sincerity, we do prefer to hire people's family members. We feel like it keeps the workers here longer and it keeps them focused longer. Almost every single one of our family members has worked here pretty much. All of our kids work in the factory. So this is a family business, not just for the Newmans, but for the people who sit up here and do the same job every day. The blue collar class workers here. So it is admirable to see, and we love our people up here. Here, come on, come through if you would.
Great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gladys. I'll show you some more of the production floor. We'll go down the hallway, and I'll show you the machines that wrap the cigars in cellophane. See that? You get your 59. There's the band that goes on. There's the cellophane. It cuts it, rolls it right here, and melts it at like 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, there you go. That's the one tower I was trying to show you downstairs. This is the Indonesian. So why do we have Indonesian and Ecuador up here? They're both natural wrappers. We're experimenting. We want to see if we like Indonesian. Reason being, sometimes you're not able to buy as much Ecuadorian tobacco. If you can't buy as much Ecuadorian, we have to do something else, Indonesian. So that's why it's here. Regardless of the type though, it all comes through these machines. These are machines that cut the stem out. You can see, look at the bottom. Hey, look at me, seriously. Those are all stems. It ejects the stem out of each leaf. It basically cuts it out and ejects it out. You're eviscerating, you're bisecting the tobacco. And when you pull it out, you get what Gladys has there. Those are called pads or gavillas. Gavillas are 1/2 the leaves. You can wrap the cigar left to right or right to left, again, but you always have these stems using the machine. The great thing is that all the machines are built in 1910. They're as old as the building.
These machines are all
So
from
you can
1910.
tell, look at the cast iron and brass. This is really a piece of wood. Most modern factories in Honduras and Nicaragua don't have these machines, but they're so old you can't get them. So they have to pay their workers to strip by hand, cut and leaf by hand. You know, it's modern but also antique at the same time. That's what makes our factory so special. Dime trámite, se puede.
Tabaco.
Yeah, tobacco. Here, watch. Look at the knife machine right here.
Ya déjame terminar aquí, ya terminé aquí.
You got like two left. Once you open up the machine, you pull it out left side, right side. It's all being wrapped around the drum. In case you're missing. All these machines up here make different shapes and sizes of the factory go out and those are figured back. These are main oil and gas. It makes about 60,000 cigars a day. 16,000. The figure, of course, that all these machines are about 90, 100 years old. They're very fragile sometimes, they break down a lot, but they work. They work very well. Just the concept. A Cuban cigar maker can roll out 100 cigars a day. 4,000, 5,000. That's the way the cigar makes it. You have to first put each wrap on. So this is the real McCoy, right? These are the cigar makers. The machines are cool, and they're from the 1930s, and they're part of American history, but I mean, you can't beat this. This has been the same profession, industry, trade since at least 1922. Although really this goes back to the 1600s. There was a big factory in Seville, Spain called the Real Fábrica de Tabacos, and that's where they first started making modern handmade cigars as we know them now. And everybody up here has continued that tradition. In the modern day, exactly how they would have been Tampa a century ago. I mean, look at that picture right there. Obviously, we don't have as many workers anymore, but hey, we got air conditioning too. So it's not like a sweatbox. Check this out, watch more. Here, turn around and watch this guy, the big guy, Angel. No, it's not. His name's not Angel Cuesta, but he is making the Angel Cuesta. Kind of a funny thing. Angel makes the Angel, and he has to pack and bunch it himself. So that's the filler and the binder tobacco he's got right there. So unlike downstairs, it's not short filler, it's the long filler, it's the whole leaf. And it's also not the homogenized tobacco leaf, not the tobacco taper stuff, it's the actual binder leaf. So that's the binder there to hold it together. And then he's going to fill it with 3 different types of Nicaragua. Now, when you're making the machine-made cigars, the machine just kind of packs the short filler in like a hot dog, like I was explaining downstairs. This, though, you have to make the blend yourself. It doesn't taste like an Angel Cuesta unless it's made, right? So he's using these tobaccos from different growing regions in Nicaragua, and he's blending them based off strength, based off flavor, based off combustion. It's got to have a balance of all 3 of those things: strength, flavor, and combustion. Otherwise, it's not a good cigar. On top of all that, these are they're a 57 ring gauge, meaning each cigar's got a caliber out of 64ths of an inch. A 57 64ths of an inch, that's like this big. You can only put so much tobacco in there without it being too tight. If you put too much filler inside, it gets all gummy and stuck together. It's like a block of wood. You can't pull air through it, right? So he's got to be careful, make sure he doesn't put too much or too little inside, make sure it's got the perfect ratio and blend. And you can see him, when he works with the tobacco, he'll kind of squeeze it, pinch it in his hand. He's looking for dead spots, he's looking for holes to make sure it's the perfect consistency all throughout. And once he's satisfied, he'll roll it up in the binder, he'll press it in this mold in a vise for about an hour or so, and it'll come out looking like a cigar. And then probably in the afternoon here, he'll put the wrapper and the cap on the cigar, keeping it sealed at one end, you know. But really, you could tell this is a pretty high-skilled job. This is not something you can pick up in like a day or a week or a month. It takes probably a year or more to train to be a cigar maker. It's like going to technical college, kind of. Down in Cuba, they have classes where they'll train you how to make different sizes of cigars, and you can also kind of like apprentice, work in a factory, work your way up. And countries where they don't have a big tradition of cigar making, like Nicaragua and Honduras, it only goes back to the 1960s, really. It's not super old, the industry's pretty young there. It takes about 2 years to train somebody from a blank slate, right? It takes about 2 years of training. So that's why we're very happy and glad to have these guys up here. Everybody up here has already been working in the cigar industry for like 15, 20, or 30 years. They come to us and we hire them to work in this factory and make our boutique brands. So Angel's been doing it for almost 37 years now. So, I mean, that's like the guy who, you know, you need somebody to fix your plumbing in your house. This guy shows up, he's doing it for 40 years. He's like smoking a cigarette, takes one look at it and, you know, does something to your water main and it's fixed, right? That's like Angel with cigars essentially. And that's why we're happy to have him making this beautiful, beautiful figurado shape. It's 7 1/4 by 57. It's a pretty big cigar.
I noticed it was more humid in the other room. Is it not as much of a concern here, the humidity, or?
We have humidifiers there and there, but you're right. This feels. You say more humid?
Less humid. No,
Yeah,
less
right. This
humid,
is
yeah.
very dry up here. This is the building honestly has pretty bad insulation up here for keeping the humidity, which is why we turn on those humidifiers every 15 minutes. Hector's doing wrapper. So if you watch him, he'll take that damp wrapper tobacco like how we saw in the basement, and he'll stretch it on top of his cigar. Because the wrapper is damp, he can really work with it like a piece of leather to get this nice, smooth, oily sheen. It'll be pretty much immaculate. And then he caps it on one end to keep all the oils and sugars fresh on that end of the cigar, and that's it. He does the same action every day, 70 to 100 times, right? That's the job, that's the life of a cigar maker. It gives you an appreciation for the cigars you buy, realizing how much skill goes into it. Oh, another thing, up here, there's just 7 or 8 people making cigars every day. It's not a huge staff. So to control the consistency and quality, it's one person making one size of one brand. So he's the only guy who pretty much touches this Ybor Newman Churchill. Eli's helping him right now. And then in the front, Angel's the only guy making that Solomon. Yamale's the only one making that Toro. Yeni's making that Toro or double booster for the American, etc., etc. So it's just cool. Anyways, all these cigars, once they're made, they'll go downstairs and they'll by the year, they will come back and be stored in their stacks. And that's the job of the Rosagadora here. I'm not a Rosagadora, I'm pretty colorblind. If I was, check this out, guys. Come over here. You want to arrange cigars in a box, darkest to light from left to right. So you usually have a Rosagadora who does 1 part quality control, takes off any of the broken, damaged cigars, and does 1 part color sorting. You want to make sure that when you put all 20 cigars in a box, they're as similar in color and look and appearance as possible. So obviously, you know, these guys are not going in a box together. Looks like peanut butter and chocolate. And that's another reason why you have women doing this, not men. A lot of men tend to be colorblind, but that's not the point. The point is women usually have better color distinction than men. They have more cones and rods in their eyes. So they didn't know that back in 1825, though. They just thought that women have better focus and attention to detail than men did. Nowadays, they do realize because women have better color distinction. But, oh man, look at that guy. That guy looks like a camouflage pattern. It's all modeled and stuff. So you also want to pull the ugly cigars. Like this is not very good looking. We call these rotos or broken cigars. You can peel off the wrap like an onion skin and put another one on. So you can technically save the cigar if you want.
Roto?
Roto, yeah.
So does the discoloration like after a little while? Because I presume if they do, if they see them rolling, that they would keep rolling that way.
Yeah, I mean it can set when it's aging, but I'll be honest, sometimes they just make the cigar, they get the wrap they're given, and they put it on the cigar. You know? So that's why you do the quality control after the fact. So. And then all the bands self-and go on by hand. Bibi and Jacqueline are doing the cigar bands, and then in the back, Yanita and Ivan normally do the cellophane too, but right now, God bless them, they've got to do the filetteado. This is called filetteado or box trimming. That's what makes your box look pretty, the edging that goes on the side, right? We didn't like the old box edging, so we're fixing it. We're putting on new box edging. The only problem is that we have to do it all in-house. So these ladies had to manually scrape off the old box edging and put on the new stuff with glue. So it's a labor of love, that's for sure. We assure our customers when they buy the American, it is 100% American, right? The cellophane's American, the bands are American, the stickers are American, even the box is American, and we put on the filetteado, the edging here by hand as well. Everything in this factory is exactly how it would have been a century ago, just minus one job in particular. We don't have the guy who used to read the newspaper anymore. There used to be a guy who would stand up on the stage and he'd read the newspaper every day, but The problem was, sometimes the union guys, the labor union guys, are paying money to tell them to read the union newspaper. If you read like the Florida Labor Advocate, which the owners hated. So there's no more union, and there's no more readers for good reason. They brought in radios and said, hey, if you want to work and entertain yourself, listen to music, and that stands today. If you see them with AirPods in, they're all listening to music. That's what we're doing. Get through the workday. That way you don't have to listen to me come up here and say the same spiel 3 times a day, right? That's not the kind of story you want to hear. But yeah, if you ever see a museum that talks about the readers, they'll talk about how the brands came out of the readers. That's kind of true. Like they like the Count of Monte Cristo. That was one of their favorite books. And what's the cigar called? Monte Cristo, right? They loved hearing Romeo and Juliet. What's the cigar called? Romeo and Juliet. So it matters. It's just part of the romance, you know. This is a really cool industry, obviously. We like it, it's our business, and it puts bread on the table for us. And we'll keep doing it as long as the lights stay on in Tampa. But for people who visit, this is our obligation. If we don't make cigars here in Tampa, nobody else will in the United States as a whole. That's it, right?
And the expiration?
I wasn't kidding about the whole building at the neighborhood thing. We own most of the adjacent empty grass lots, this building on the south side of Columbus there. And Drew's uncle Bobby actually went up to Tallahassee, Florida, and purchased an old tobacco barn from 1800. He's going to build on the site. We're going to have our own tobacco barn, our own tobacco field. We're going to have a hotel too that they're working on in jackhammering currently. They're going to have a hotel there, 2 stories, top floor hotel, bottom floor cigar lounge. It's going to be awesome once it's built out. They'll be able to come here and see the entire process from seed to smoke. We even have a park too. I think they're running power though to the different light poles, so I think that's under construction right now. But you know, it's really special here, and I hope you folks enjoyed. On behalf of Newman, thank you very much for your time and your visit. And if you want to give us any more, feel free to buy the cigars we sell, including the American names request Leroy Neiman. If you need help, let me know. I'm here for it. Again, my name is Holden, but this is a great sell, and that's the nickel for it.
Awesome, thank you.